Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Minton-Smith, and I am going to be your moderator today. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager for our Manufacturing Excellence product here at MasterControl. Today, we are going to be talking about how to extend your digital infrastructure, your digital manufacturing, beyond just your high-value, high-volume sites and into a lot of those smaller sites that might be doing cell and gene therapy or clinical or R&D. Before we get started, let's cover a few housekeeping items. If you need any assistance during today's broadcast, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. Please send us a message there and we will work to resolve any issues you might be having. There is also a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to ask questions during today's webinar. Feel free to ask questions anytime, but we will have a dedicated time for Q&A after Sarah is done presenting. So without further ado, I am very excited to introduce Sarah Brzee.
Thanks, Caitlin. So I'm Sarah Brzee, and I have lived across the world and worked on clients of all sizes. And specifically, I've spent the last few years of my career focusing on the enterprise market segment. And what we see there is that every enterprise in the life sciences space has a slew of strategic initiatives that are often interconnected, whether companies are focused on Industry 4.0 or building smart factories, or from the bottoms up, making sure that all of their workers and operators are connected workers. These initiatives are all about how are we getting digitization and the benefits of digital data into the hands of companies today. Now, when I sit down with executives from these organizations, any number of these priorities are hugely strategic. They're viewed as top priorities, whether it's getting access to real-time data off of the shop floor or getting data that is held hostage in paper into those digital systems so that AI solutions can perform analysis. Companies are fighting to digitize their manufacturing environments, and it's critical. But there's a bit of a secret in terms of what's going on. Who gets resources in the world of MES versus non-MES based facilities? Only those facilities that have the highest volume or the most valuable commercial projects tend to go digital, or are the ones that are able to go digital first. In fact, many of them have been digital for a long time, but that leaves the rest. Among 65% of sites, according to some of my friends at a recent interview, the majority stuck in paper and stuck using manual processes because until now, there haven't been flexible solutions or cost-effective solutions that they're able to adopt that meet their return on investment. So let's look at a top 10 pharmaceutical company. This is very common. Only a fraction of those sites are able to use traditional or legacy MES products. They tend to set it and forget it in terms of the ability to deliver high quality products using a traditional MES. But look at all of that data, all of those processes that are still on paper where critical business decisions can't be made because we can't get that data off of a paper batch record, out of a paper-based process. Paper is causing us huge problems. Leaders in these organizations report the following kinds of challenges. 64% have missing or unusable data in their batch records. That same 64% have siloed production systems. So what do we mean by that? Maybe you have an electronic logbook, but you still have a paper-based batch record, and your warehousing forms are still also hand filled in. That data still exists in those silos. We have manual process-based efficiencies. We're going to talk about and see some of those in a little bit, but think about anybody doing a batch review process where they're still paging page by page by page into that batch review. We have some rework and scrap challenges. And when you look at the combination, that means that we have records with preventable human errors. We have delayed review and release processes, and an oftentimes poor traceability of that data. This is all fixable. Now, in this old legacy model, we see that there was like a center of excellence for large commercial MES solutions. A company would go in, they would scope one, and there would be this, 3, 5, 10-year rollout plan for the commercial system. But in this new world, what we're seeing is a massive uptake of systems that deliver more value quickly and at a lower cost. Now, we're not displacing that traditional infrastructure. Those things are still running. But alongside that, we're seeing the adoption of solutions that get sites to get their hands on this technology and therefore this data. And they can implement faster. In many cases, in like 4 to 5 months for a system like this. Now, that legacy mindset, digital transformation was this tops-down initiative. It was led by one group. We now see that sites can raise their hand and implement solutions that augment their existing infrastructure, allowing them to get that data faster. So much pressure exists in the world to adopt AI and get to agentic analysis faster. And to be able to do that, they need to be able to use their data. That data can be used to improve decision-making, get to better manufacturing outcomes. And that should not take 3, 5, 8, or 10 years in a center-led rollout plan. Sites have the flexibility to adopt these solutions today. And we see that there's now room for both this traditional legacy system, which is going to continue to produce value, and also that those 65% of sites where these systems weren't flexible enough or cost effective enough can now adopt a light modern MES, this set of tools that doesn't require a headquarters or IT tops down level of resources to manage, to code, to be bespoke handled. They are democratized tools, and these tools are still fully integrated into the common technology stack. They're GMP ready, they're validatable, and they can be live very quickly, and they happily coexist in that IT infrastructure so that the sites themselves can get to their analysis and better outcomes faster. This is the modern approach to enterprise-wide digital transformation. So what would that look like? You keep what you have there in your high value, high volume sites where your traditional MES is already implemented, but you can implement modern solutions like MasterControl, Manufacturing Excellence, or MX. There is no need to rip and replace. And you can do that if you have in-house contract manufacturing, in-house R&D that requires flexible implementation, pilot sites, secondary sites. There's no need to rip and replace. And that then those sites get the value of connected end-to-end production visibility. Not just the high-value commercial sites, but all the sites are able to unlock that data. And companies now can solve problems and get answers in a way that they couldn't before. That, of course, leads to continuous improvement, which just helps us all from a quality products into the marketplace perspective. Now, you can do that at a single site level. You can have single site level analysis. For example, line leaders need better analytics, but you can also do that across operations globally. There's no limit to what these flexible tools can help you do. And of course, that's integrated into the enterprise systems. Of course, it's integrated with your ERP system. Of course, with your LIMS, your enterprise asset management system for managing the manufacturing machines on the shop floor, your learning management system to stop operators from taking steps they are not trained to perform, keeping you audit ready, keeping the public protected, even into legacy document management systems so that you can unlock those documents and help get a single view of what's happening in the batch, all brought together through the MasterControl MX solution. Now, manufacturing from MasterControl is a flexible system that you configure your own way. It has a no-code process design tool or builder. That builder gives you the ability to set up consistent global elements and scalable templates, enables recipe and product family management, and has helped companies reduce from hundreds of templates down to a handful of templates and keep them in a consistently validated state through the validation on demand. We're able to provide error-proof data capture. So these are guided work instructions. There's automated limits and thresholds, inline operator training, and GDP compliant corrections, as well as signatures. We have a closed loop deviation process, as well as the ability to integrate with your existing QMS provider for deviation creation and CAPA management. The digitization of those systems enable us to deliver 80% faster review cycles, eliminate the line-by-line paper-based reviews, and help us, either whether using AI tools or the tools available in the system, to look at data issues, trend issues, line-level issues, operator line issues, to get you better answers, to get you more efficiency into the system. Now, what does that mean? We've helped companies avoid millions of errors by simply automating data capture. That human error is a huge and common problem. This is requiring people to check and triple check. It's slowing down the production process. And using these new flexible tools, data can be entered to eliminate date and time errors, to eliminate calculation errors, to eliminate missing signatures, just to name a few. The real world impact of that is to assist reviewers in shortening their review time, achieving better audit outcomes, and of course, decreasing the overall risk of the batch manufacturing quality. Now, it's not enough just to deliver the impact of reducing human errors. We have to be able to optimize resources. So in addition to reducing those risks, systems like this also help optimize resources. Here's an example from a 503B company. It's an organization that has, when they came to MasterControl, said, we need actual, implementation targets for how we're going to be able to do more work with the same level of resources, which is the thing we hear over and over and over again. So they spent 5 actual hours per batch in human data entry. Their target was 2.5, and we have been able to deliver 2.5 hours in each batch for human data entry, a 50% reduction. In review, we're able to deliver a 2/3 of an hour improvement for manufacturing review and a 75% improvement in quality review. You can imagine the business impact of being able to deliver or scale huge amounts of production using the same amount of staff. Now I want to leave you with a real-world case study, another one from a top 10 pharmaceutical manufacturer. They needed support for clinical manufacturing of mRNA for vaccine production. This is a company that looked at 12 vendors. They looked at traditional MES providers as well as new and modern electronic batch record or EBR systems. They selected MasterControl because of its ease of use, its ability to scale, and the ability to match their clinical business processes, which require a significant amount of flexibility. They happen to use the MX solution across 5 different sites and have been an active user since the end of COVID in about 2021. This is just one of hundreds of organizations making use of these modern, flexible MES solutions alongside their commercial legacy MES infrastructure today. We would encourage organizations to think about how can you adopt these time-saving, efficient resources, these solutions that can live in your existing infrastructure. And now I think we would be happy to take your questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome. It's so cool to see how some of our clients are augmenting their existing systems with manufacturing excellence. I think one of the things that you said that was so critical and that we hear a lot from clients is, well, I have the system and it works really well. Great. We're not here to displace something that's running 24/7 in a lights out facility. But that's such a small number of facilities that most, especially enterprise organizations have. So always really cool to kind of see the numbers and see what we're hearing from our clients. We did have a couple questions come through while you were presenting. As I noted, please do use that Q&A function to submit your questions. If we don't have time to hit them today, we will definitely try to answer them afterwards and post them up. So let's go with some questions here. Sarah, you feeling good to answer some?
Sure. Let's talk about some questions and answers.
Great. So what are some of the barriers to this approach that we've heard from clients? And how do we see leaders overcome those barriers? And when I say approach, I think, or I guess I'm reading approach as this idea of kind of augmenting your traditional systems with modern lightweight systems like MX.
Sure. I mean, I think the first question that any facility is going to have is what are the bottom line impacts going to be and how much is it going to cost? And so you have to think about this system as what kind of value can we deliver? So whether it's we're going to take targets related to efficiency gains, or we're going to really be in it to eliminate data entry. I think starting with a plan for what we want to achieve and understanding, understanding how that could happen is really the place to start, because that's how you have to sell this into the executive team is, hey, we know we have a huge amount of human operator-led error. There are these new systems we could use. But I think being able to say, and we think we can reduce human error by 90%, or being able to say, hey, our batch release process today takes 20 days, and we've had a real focus on this and we've gotten it down to 14, but we think with a solution like this, we could get it down to between 5 and 8 days per batch. And here's the financial impact of that. Really being able to quantify what value is adding a solution like this going to give to the business, so that we can, make sure that the math adds up, right? Because at the end of the day, it has to foot. We need to be able to be sure that everybody is on board with the efficiencies from a system like MasterControl.
Awesome. You just said something that was interesting. I think it actually leads really well into the next question, is you were talking about kind of quantifying, the quantifiability, if you will, any solution that you bring on. What do we typically see? The question is, what are some of the early wins companies typically see when they digitize these smaller lines or sites?
I spend a lot of time, as I said, with huge organizations, and there's a paradigm at a large organization that an MES solution can take a year to 18 months to implement. And then, you need a project management office, a PMO that's going to roll that across globally. And, I work with companies that are still working on like 8, 10, 15 years of legacy MES rollout. The first thing I think you could talk about is implementation time in the 4-month timeframe. So if we could get our first production record live and the first line set up in 4 months, what would that do to our business? If we could reduce the time it takes to issue templates, or the number of templates we have to manage from 100 down to 6, how many either fewer people or fewer hours would we need in order to, or time could we save based on that? And then there's things really like those people. I just think about everybody today. It's like the Dunkin' Donuts, time to make the donuts, like time to review the batch paperwork, where, this page by page, line by line review, we've got to get to a place where we can use a review by exception, risk-based approach, and really have targets related to increasing the time, the faster time for batch release, but also not slipping on those quality markers, making sure that we are keeping quality high, but only looking at what happened in the batch, using review by exception. Those would be 3 examples that I would say immediately that can make a huge business impact.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Sarah. Moving on to the next question. How does this strategy fit into an existing enterprise architecture without creating redundancy?
Sure. So some of the things you have to think about are, of course, you have an ERP, right? And of course, you have machines on your shop floor, and many of you are working with lab information. So you need to think about how am I going to first reduce operator error? Not step one, phase one. Like, let's take what we do today and get it into the system. And then in the second stage, you need to be thinking about, oh, now that I can see what a digital system can do, have I thought about my master data model? Am I getting the reporting that I need? Is my process working the way I want my process to work? So we often see organizations change their process now that they don't have to use the paper-based approach. And then that third step is, can I still get the benefit of automating the data from machines, from the ERP? Can I use sensors? Can I use all, scanners, QR codes? How can I get data into the batch record more effectively using modern technology? So, those are things to think about. I don't know, Caitlin, did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it did. I think the other thing that I would definitely want to point out is, and you pointed this out at the beginning of the presentation, is in the ecosystem, like you were talking about, there's a lot of software, hardware.
Yeah.
But I also think thinking of redundancy as what you don't have at the site, right? So it's not you, if you don't have a digital manufacturing solution at the site, putting one in just kind of extends and gives you all of the goodness that you have at those high value, high volume sites into a lot of those smaller sites or specialized sites. So I think there's like a redundancy concern of shelfware and, oh, are we going to buy this and not use it? But if you're already kind of moving down this path of digitization at your high value sites, of digitization on your shop floor, of digitization in your enterprise resource planning, like this is sort of that next thing that you need in your portfolio or in your ecosystem to make sure that you can take advantage of all of that stuff and the AI that you were talking about and the machine learning that you were talking about.
So to recap that, what you're saying is like, okay, you have 3 high value lines that you're running at site 1, but what about lines 4 through 15 that are still on paper? Like this takes care of like lines 4 through 15, and then you multiply that across the 65% of other sites that still have lines working on paper. And it fits within the existing ecosystem. It doesn't displace; it just adds value. I was on the floor laughing last week because I had somebody say to me, my job is digital transformation. Somebody literally wants to hand me $12 million to go buy AI tools for deviation analysis. It's like, you cannot use AI for deviation analysis if your data is in a paper-based batch record. So it's like, we've got to unlock the data so that the rest of the organization can have access, like you said, to the insights that now these modern AI tools, these amazing agentic AI tools can give us. So unlock the data, get those sites digitized.
Yeah. I mean, you and I could probably talk about that for hours. But I want to get back to questions from.
Sorry.
I know we're just over here gabbing. I do want to get back to one last question that I'm seeing. Is it realistic to view this kind of augmented system, modern MES, connected EDR, as a stepping stone or to a traditional MES? Or should it be considered a long-term complement to the rest of your ecosystem?
I mean, the answer there, again, you're going to get a vendor-specific answer, and that's a yes and a yes. So if you have things that work today and you feel good about the price tag, then you're not going to disrupt those things. If you have things that kind of work today, but they're still really expensive, or they're old and creaky and cranky, and you're not getting the data out of them, then maybe it is a replacement strategy. But this is a solution that is taken hold across the parts of enterprises that need real flexibility. I have an in-house CDMO. I have clinical manufacturing. I have trial kitting and packaging. I have the need to make changes to templates to keep them in a validated state in real time. And there are no solutions on the market for that. This is the kind of solution on the market for that. And when you go to transfer something out of R&D into commercial manufacturing, like you're going to transfer that either using the same tool or moving to a commercial MES. So there are, it's a yes and a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. The only thing I will add to that before we close out is I think I'm not sure if the question was like, do we do sort of a modern thing and then eventually we end up in a traditional MES no matter what? And I think this kind of goes back to something that you were saying about like, what are your outcomes and what are your goals going to be? And because these modern systems can augment, they can live side by side. It's not, I think about a cell and gene organization. I cannot imagine that they're ever going to go into a high volume, low variability type of environment.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a longevity, especially I look at manufacturing excellence, and I think that there's a longevity there to really serve those sites.
Absolutely.
And get them digital and get them the good stuff. So unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. So I just want to take one last opportunity to thank everybody for attending today and for letting us have a bit of a conversation with you. Thank you for your questions. And we hope that we can talk to you soon and that you come to more webinars in the future. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.